Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second season of our LinkedIn Live. Today, sponsored by Comsor. We've got a really good topic today to talk about how to optimize your SDR team's LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as we know right now, can be a bit of a chaotic place with a lot of information being thrown around and a lot of maybe spam messages. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how we can get your SDR teams to use LinkedIn in the right way and give you some tips and tricks to optimize that. And to do that, we have back Mafalda. Matt, unfortunately, is sick today. We wish him all the best and getting well soon. So you've still got Mafalda and you have myself for today.
I have to cover for the two.
Yes, cover for me as well. That's good. Yeah, exactly. So, Mafalda, maybe just because we're kicking off again a second season, maybe introduce yourself to the group and let people know who you are.
So yeah, for those who don't know me, my name is Mafalda. Is a Portuguese name. So I'm from Portugal. I live in Germany, in Berlin, for over 10 years. I've been working in sales for more than 10 years. I started in tourism and then I moved to tech, and now I'm in the cloud space. I've done most of the jobs in the revenue department, from marketing to business development to customer success even. But what I like is business development. That's what I like the most. And that's why I decided to stick with the business development department.
Awesome. So this is going to be an interactive session. We want to have your questions. It'd be great in the first instance as well if you can just drop us a message about where you're calling in from. It'd be great to see, because then also that's going to help us with how we're going to talk around LinkedIn and the kind of markets that you might be going after as well. So I will bring up the first question, Mafalda, which is this. So we want people to use LinkedIn, absolutely, but sometimes there's a bit of hesitancy. What's the most significant objection that you're seeing from SDRs for using LinkedIn, and then also how can you solve it?
Yeah, and I would say that this goes beyond SDRs, but I would say anyone who is hesitant in using LinkedIn. So I've been giving a lot of training, not only to my teams, but also to other departments. And there are a couple objections that I hear that are very common, and that's why people are a bit afraid of using LinkedIn. First of all is some of them have some prejudice, right? There's like, oh, it's a Vanity Fair. I don't want to brag. I don't want to do this. I don't want people to see me as a bragger or whatever. They are afraid of being seen. So this is one of the reasons why SDRs or other people don't want to post on LinkedIn. The other one is I don't know what to post. I haven't found my voice yet. I don't know the tone. I don't know how to start. And the others is they maybe start, they write a post. It takes them 1 hour to write a post because you want to write something that's good, that's useful, that's well done. You are a bit insecure, a bit afraid. Suddenly you write a really good post, but that took you 1 hour. And then because it's your first post and maybe you have 48 connections, it gets 2 impressions, right? And then it demotivates right away because it's like, this brought me literally nothing. 1 hour of my job brought me nothing, so I'm gonna give up. So those are, I would say, the main objections that people have when they don't want to, start posting on LinkedIn. How do I solve them? First of all, the first objection, which is I don't want to brag or I don't want to be seen as fill in the blank. I always say, you decide what to post, so if you don't want to brag, then don't, so you are responsible as well for the image that you put outside, right? So that's on you. No one will decide the content for you, so you have to decide what makes you comfortable, right? So if you don't want to put selfies on, then they don't. I never put a selfie on, because I don't feel comfortable with that. but it doesn't mean that other people don't feel comfortable with that. So you know best what makes you comfortable, and there are no right or wrong. They don't say shit about your competitors or don't make racist comments. You know what I mean? But this is like the basic rules of living in society. Apply those to LinkedIn. Other than that, you should be fine. So that's the first one. Then the second one is, don't wait until you find your voice. It's easier to start writing and getting better over time, right? So don't wait until you have an epiphany. Start writing. Again, there is no right or wrong as long as you go after, societal rules of living with other people. But just start writing, and your style, your post will evolve and should evolve over time, because your career and your goals are also changing, and your posting should change with that. So don't overthink, start. And then if something takes you an hour to do, then something is wrong. So especially now with ChatGPT, it's so much easier to get ideas. English is not my first language, as you can tell, and I write in English. So um, many times I would say that you can write the post on ChatGPT and say, hey, correct the grammar or make it sound a bit more native, right? There is no shame in doing that. I do that. English is not my first language. So now it's so much easier to do it in 5 minutes. And done is better than perfect. And again, if you don't say anything super wrong, your post should be fine. So just post, because you feel less frustrated to get 2 impressions if you spend 5 minutes. But if you spend 1 hour and you get 2 impressions, you'll be devastated. So I really recommend you to, especially in the beginning where you're warming up your algorithm, don't spend more than 5 to 10 minutes on each post.
Yeah, I think Matt said something which really, really good here. The basic rules of society is rules for your post. I think it's a real, it's quietly some of the best advice. Totally agree. It's just be yourself, be normal, just be respectful as well, and
Yeah.
it helps so much.
Just don't be a bad person, then it should be fine. I know nowadays it's a great advice, but it's still valid.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's move on to the next question. So I've got some thoughts on this as well. So we'll start with you, Mafalda, first. So we've got our team to start to post, but as you said, like, we don't want them to be spending hours on creating the perfect thing, perfect post. So if an SDR is only going to post on LinkedIn once per week, what kind of post would actually get prospects to notice and not just scroll past you?
So if you just do it once a week, definitely don't reshare your company's content. And I'm not saying that to piss off any company. It's just usually corporate content gets less impressions, and you won't be seen. It's not me who says that, it's the algorithm. It's how LinkedIn works. So I usually recommend, if you share companies content, then you should be posting on LinkedIn, let's say 5 times a week, Monday to Friday. And then 2 out of those 5 posts can be from your corporate content. That's fine. If you just post once a week, maybe not the best use of your time and of your exposure, because unfortunately that's how LinkedIn works. It's a social network after all, so they value authentic and personal content over corporate content. So that's the first advice. The second one is, well, you should know what's important and what's interesting to your prospects. So you should definitely, if you want to capture their attention, you should talk about usually their challenges, or talk about solutions that are interesting to them, or trying to help them. And unfortunately, nowadays an image gets always more attention than a text. I'm a huge fan of text, and a lot of my posts have text only, but I see the difference whenever I post an image. And it doesn't have to be a picture of me. It can be a meme, can be a random image, but whenever you have something visual with the text, it also gets more views. And if it's a picture of yourself, even more, right? But then it comes down, what are you comfortable with? And only you can decide that. But if it's just once a week, focus on the challenges that your prospects have, focus on tips, resources, things that could be interesting for them. And if you add a picture or a video to your post, you have higher chances to get it noticed.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think if it's about, much like if you're cold calling or if you're sending an email, it's about creating, piquing somebody's interest immediately and getting them to go, oh. And so having something visual is going to draw their attention to that. And as my father said, a meme, there's lots of like meme websites that you can use to create a picture with some text, just to draw people's attention towards it. And then again, not parroting the company line. I worked for a company once that asked us to post every single day, and then there was a leaderboard for the amount of posts that we were doing, and you would win an award if you posted the most. But people just, then they don't want a walking billboard. They don't want to just see you just parroting the company line, because then where's the value? And I think it's really one of those things where you have to think about, okay, what are people really going to be looking at? What people really care about? It's such a critical thing.
Yep.
There's a question that came in from, I'm very sorry, Oase, if I've mispronounced. You asked this question about, and I'll raise my head up as well, as you can see. So Oase said, like, he's based in Mumbai, India, and he serves clients in the US market. Some people have suggested to remove any mention of India from his LinkedIn profile and instead present himself as being based in the US. However, I feel that might be misleading. Don't you think it's better to be transparent?
That's a tricky question. It's a very good one. It's tricky. So I'm all about transparency, right? But it's true that you might have more chances if you are located in the place where you're selling, right? It's the same. For example, think about it. It happened to me many years ago when I was wanting to move to Germany. I was still in Portugal, but I wanted to go to Germany. And I had on my CV that my location was Portugal, but I was ready to relocate to any place in Germany. But that didn't matter, right? The only thing they saw was Portugal. So before I moved to Germany, I changed my address to Germany to pass that, because anyway, I was able to get there. So it was a lie, but was it though? Because I was ready to get there anytime, the first airplane, right? And my goal was that. So I had to change that on my CV to get more interviews. Here is kind of the same thing. If it helps you get more connection requests, I mean, does it really hurt? Are you, also, why would the prospect care where you are, if you have a good product and you're doing a good job? But on the other hand, I also understand your transparency is like, hey, I live in Mumbai. What's wrong with that? So I would say maybe do an A/B test, maybe change to US for a month. See if that helps you get further. If it doesn't, you go back to transparency. If it really improves your chances, I mean, why not? It's you're not lying about something really big, in my opinion. So
yeah, 100%. And then we got a question from Mateo. Sorry, Lisa, I'll come back to you. Regarding the point avoiding resharing the company's post if it's only a weekly interaction, does it apply also to repost with your own thoughts?
Yeah, you should always repost with your own thoughts, in the sense that if you post 5 times a week, let's say 3 times it's your own posts and 2 times are your company's, those posts should always be with your own thoughts. Just reshare it doesn't bring much. If it's just once a week, if I would serve, for example, in my company, if there is a cool video that they did, I ask the marketing manager to send me the file of the video, and I do an original post with the file of the video of the company, because it gets more impressions than a reshare from a company's page. So yes, if you just post once a week, you shouldn't be resharing companies' posts with or without your own thoughts.
Nice one. So we'll just have a break in a moment and just have a shout out to today's sponsor, Comsor. So Comsor unlocks the power of your networks, enabling you to scale your business, amplify your resources, and increase your presence in ways that traditional marketing or advertising channels can't. So with Comsor, you can fill your pipeline with more warm intros, get more referrals from customers, and they also were very nice and added me on their 25 tips for 2025 on outbound, which I'm sure if you ask them nicely, they'll send you a copy of as well. I'm in the middle. You can't miss me with my terrible haircut. So if you want to learn more about Comsor, check them out at comsor.com, and I'll add a link into the chat in a moment as well. So let's move to another one of our questions, which is around connection requests. And this is always a really big hot topic. What's the secret sauce about connection requests? Should you add a text to it? Should you just blind add them at connect request? What works? How do things get accepted and sparks a reply?
So generally, and I know that sounds maybe counterintuitive for many people, you should send a blank connection request. Because unless there is an exception that I'll mention in a second, but let's say you don't have anything very important to add, or you don't have a very compelling reason. If you just send a generic message, hey, I'd like to add you to my network, that doesn't make the person more curious about you. On the other hand, that's a very generic message that every salesperson or recruiter sends. And don't forget that when I receive a connection request with a text, I have to read the text, process it, think if I'm going to accept it or not, and then accept it or not. If I just receive a connection request, I only have one thing to do, accept or reject, right? So it's easier to accept and not thinking about it anymore. So you're way more likely to get it accepted if you give me, let's say, less work and less steps in my mind as the person who receives the connection request. Now, there is an exception, which is if I say something that really will make me accept it, which is, for example, if someone referred me, right? So if I spoke to a friend of yours or to a colleague of yours and I say, hey, John, Dave Wilkins told me to connect with you. That is a kind of message that most likely will improve your chances of getting accepted, because they will be curious about why is the person I know and I trust sharing the person, right? Or something, for example, hey, you were selected for these awards or something like that. So something that it's really compelling to the person, and the person will say, okay, I really need to accept this and continue the conversation. If you don't have something as strong as this kind of messages, then you have higher chances to get it accepted if you don't say anything. Definitely don't use the generic ones. That will hurt more than help you.
Yeah, big time. I think I also fell into that trap of trying to send long messages before on connection requests, and it's quite interesting to see my pending
It's
one.
polite.
Yeah, it's like, what does this person want? And you can see in my list of pending connection requests, most of the ones that are still pending are ones that had text in it. And I think, yeah, just people just don't have time for it. Again, it's a social media platform, LinkedIn, and if you are having stuff that people have to read and they're just looking at their phone very quickly, it's I'll get to that later, and then they never get back to it. It's always a real tough one. So actually somebody just mentioned something. Michael Falado, thanks ever so much for coming. He always sends a blank LinkedIn connection request unless it's a one-to-one outreach. That I want to mention. I was introduced. I think that, yeah, again, maybe that's the piece where it's like, hey, Mafalda, Michael told me to reach out to you. Oh, okay, that's great. I'm not, that's not somebody that's trying to sell me stuff. So that's a really good point. We actually had a question a little bit earlier from Lisa. Hello from Wales, Lisa.
Beautiful country.
Yeah, it's very nice. It'd be good to know whereabouts from Wales you're from, Lisa. So I'm trying to be more effective on my LinkedIn posts and schedule some posts throughout the week. However, when a scheduled post is posted, it gets a lot less impressions than a post I post in the moment. Do you have any hints or tips to master this?
I schedule all my posts.
Okay.
Like,
do you see any difference? Do you see differences on like times and time and days and stuff?
I usually, so I think what's important is that you post within the, let's say, working hours of your target group. So I usually post around 11 a.m., 12 p.m. my time, Germany, which is morning in the US and lunchtime in Europe. So it's which is most of my connections. So the time is important and the day of the week. So I always post from Monday to Friday. I leave the weekends away, also because I really want to have weekends. I don't want to go much or none at all to LinkedIn. I also saw a couple of documents where it's a myth that a scheduled post gets less impressions than something posted on the day. I don't have data to back these, okay? So I'm not sure, but I always schedule my posts because, as Lisa mentioned, I work a lot. I don't have time to think about a post during my working hours when I'm going back to meetings and I have a lot of fires to stop. So I think you can keep scheduling, but maybe it's a good idea to maybe double check with LinkedIn if that's true. But I've seen already a couple of posts or people saying that's a myth. I didn't explore that because, to be honest, I'm not too obsessed over impressions. I don't even know how many impressions usually I get on the top of my head. I think what's important is quality of your content, timing, and consistency, and that's the things I focus on.
Yeah, I'm same as you. I do schedule quite a few of my posts as well, and then, or if I get suddenly some inspiration and I see a meme or think about something, that I might just post that. But,
yeah,
it's also about consistency as well, and again, the algorithm. I don't know if it's this mythical beast that's been launched at LinkedIn headquarters. Who knows what it is? Who knows what it means?
And it changes all the time, right? So don't get too obsessed about the algorithm, I would say. Because they can change rules over time and overnight, and you cannot do anything regarding that. TripAdvisor did that when I was working in tourism. We were super obsessed, my company at the time, with TripAdvisor. They were number one in every city for the tours. They changed the algorithm overnight because they can, it's their own algorithm. And suddenly we went from first place to 76. And all of that obsession went literally to the ground. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So last question for today is, again, and it'd be good to get your thoughts here. We talked a lot about being authentic, being genuine, being yourself. So it'd be good to know from your side as well, as how, as SDR leaders, how can we stop our team from sounding like robots and just regurgitating information that maybe isn't going to be of interest, but also keeping messaging on brand as well for the company that we work for?
So I think that when we sound, as employees, when we sound like the company, then something is wrong, because we shouldn't sound like an enterprise. So the brand voice is something for the brand. It should be on the company's website, on the company's posts, on the company's newsletters, on the company's stands. That's company, right? And brand voice is super important, don't get me wrong. But me, Mafalda, or you, Dave, we shouldn't sound like ABC Limited LD. You know what I mean? I should sound like me, and you should sound like you. So the first step is really make your team understand that you should sound like yourself, not like the company. It doesn't mean, though, that we shouldn't post things that are company related. Absolutely, you should. Again, we go back to the first question, which is what should we post? We should post about the challenges of our prospects. We should post about the solutions that we have, but we should post the way we talk, the way we speak. So I would say that first I would clear up that misconception about brand voice and employee's voice. And the second one is, and that's an exercise I do as well, or I used to do when I was teaching, Portuguese, like as I used to give private lessons on Portuguese and English and stuff when I was younger, which is, I would say if you sound too robotic, then go crazy first in a sense of have a draft where you don't put any limitations. Now, that's not a draft that will you post online, right? That's not a draft, that essay that you're going to send to your teacher, right? But don't have boundaries at all as your own exercise. Go crazy, no limitations, no nothing. And then when you revise it once, 2, 3 times, then is when you start to cut it down and tone it down. And then you're gonna get to the point where you don't sound robotic, but you also don't sound outrageous. You're gonna get fired. So that's a good exercise for you to do if you are naturally too robotic when you write. I never had that problem. I always wrote in an informal way. Even the book, I just wrote a book in Portuguese about prospecting, and it doesn't sound technical at all. I decided to write the way I speak, making bad jokes in the middle, using slang if I have to. But if you are not if you are a formal person, I would try to do that exercise because it's very fun. And it's a good compromise. You will sound less robotic after the third revision, but you're going to sound more natural.
Yeah, I saw a really good example. There's a guy called Oliver Christensen. He's head of SDRs at a company called Kernel. And he's, first of all, I don't know if he's going to be here. And if he hears this, he didn't pay me. Really fun guy to meet, really good dry sense of humor. And he's really replicated that into in his posts as well. And he's still got the company message. He's still on brand, but he brings his own style of humor, and just you can tell it's coming from a fun place, but it gets eyeballs as well on what he does. And I mean that's just the big thing. It's just about being genuine and being yourself, and
with boundaries, like if you're a horrible person, maybe you should put some boundaries and don't let people find out. But if you're okay, then you can be authentic.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. Just be authentic, be yourself, but don't. If you're a horrible person,
maybe don't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great way to end this.
So, hey, thanks ever so much, Mafalda.
No, thank you so much for amazing questions. Most of the questions came from the audience, were not the ones that we had prepared. So that was awesome. I love this. I think that's way more useful when it's the audience driving the conversation, because then it's useful to them. So thank you so much, everyone, for being so active and for also helping each other. I saw that Luca mentioned very good advice to Lisa. So keep that up. I really enjoyed it. And sorry, Dave, just before we say goodbye, if there are any unanswered questions, feel free to write to me directly and I will answer to you in a private message.
That's great. Thank you. So we're going to be back next month with Matt.
Hopefully.
Hopefully his illness is better. And we're going to be talking about hiring of BDRs and how to stand out as a candidate, but then also as a leader, how to really find a really great candidates for your team. So until then, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.